our brain is so powerful, and if we can do actions over and over and over and over again, we start to rewire the way we think about feedback. And I think it's just, again, it's a practice. We're practicing this so that in real time, when it's happened, when it's time to go, our minds are ready. We're ready to receive it. And it's just that retraining of the mind to, like, instead of like having this knee-jerk negative reaction to somebody like offering some sort of help to you, throwing you a bone, now because you're not taking it as a personal attack, that, oh, this person really cares about me and they want to help me. And what happens if I do listen and I put it into action?
Actively look for the feedback. Actively ask, what can I do better? Because if you do that, guess what? Eventually, your relationships are going to prosper. There's going to be more love flowing around you, good people flowing around you, because you're just going to be a magnet, because people love to spend time with you and have, stimulating conversations with you. Welcome back to Always Level Up the podcast. I'm your host, Carlos Garcia, and this is my co-host, Tracy Garcia. How's everybody doing today?
Hello.
So we have an awesome topic, and today we're going to discuss, what is it?
Feedback, and how giving and receiving feedback should fuel our growth.
Right on.
And so we kind of came across, we don't really have an extensive method for how we come up with topics to discuss, but kind of things that are important, things that we feel like will bring value to anyone who's listening. And then in our office, we recently incorporated or rolled out a tool called Shiloh, and it's really a coaching. It's an AI-generated coaching feedback tool that we think our agents are really going to benefit from, and it really is about feedback. We've talked about feedback in our office a few times. We've partnered our agents up with accountability buddies and encourage them to, listen to each other's calls and offer some feedback and ways that they can improve. I don't know how much of it has been done, but now we have a tool that's kind of built in to give feedback. And so it kind of got me thinking about the importance of feedback and how, this tool, I was kind of looking at it like, okay, it's not another tool from an agent's point of view. Like, okay, not another thing to add to our plate, right? Not another thing that we got to learn how to do.
Yeah, something you got to use daily. It's like it works in the background.
And not like, they want to micromanage our conversations and how those are happening. No, it's like, it's a tool that's there to help you. Right. Because how many times are you getting off the phone where you're like, oh, darn it, I should have said this, or how could I have, redirected that conversation so it could have a better outcome? And now there's a tool built into the system that allows you to get exactly that, right? And it's feedback.
Right.
And so it kind of just led us down this path of like, okay, well, how does feedback help us? Like, why is this a helpful tool? And why does it help in not just work life, but our personal lives as well? And so we're here.
Yeah, so when I was thinking about feedback, it really makes me reflect on having awareness around the weaknesses that we have. And then also becoming aware of what our strengths are. And, a lot of times we tend to resist feedback from people. And it can come across as criticism. It can feel like an attack. And, so naturally as humans, we can get defensive, right? Which closes the door to the actual feedback. What I thought was cool about this is like, all right, you don't have anybody telling you what you did wrong or anything like that. You actually have a system, that's gonna give you some insight on what you're doing and how you can improve. And it's almost like just a self-managing type of tool that can help you improve. So when I'm thinking back on, all right, what has helped me get better in my life, in business, it's always been somebody being around me to either, if I'm in business and I'm in the office, listening on my conversations, tell me, hey, that was a good call, or tell me, hey, you can improve on this. I remember back in the day when I first got into real estate, and I was still rough around the edges. I was still in a transition period, and when I would speak, I wouldn't enunciate my words. Well, when I grew up, in the hood, we wouldn't enunciate our words. We were always speaking the slang, and so that was one of my weaknesses. Well, one of my colleagues pointed out to me, like, hey, when you're on the phone, enunciate your words, man. Like be clear on what you're saying. And I smiled, and at first I felt a little sting, like, God dang, he probably thinks I sound like an idiot, but there's probably truth there, and I need to be mindful on how I speak, and I need to start enunciating my words when I'm having conversations with people, because those little things are going to either build credibility or take away from the credibility. Mm-hmm. And, whoever's on the other line, they can't see you. They don't know, what you look like. They don't know your personality, your character. The only thing they're going to judge you on is how you're speaking. And if your, conversation is not refined or put together or polished, if you don't know, how to speak, clearly and get a clear message across, well, then it's going to cost you business. So I took that feedback and I said, all right, well, thank you for giving me that. Although, I kind of felt attacked.
Right. No, and that is so natural. And that is why it's such a scary thing. And, I'll share a story about the feedback later with, how I was talking to my son about it. But it's natural. It's a natural reaction in our body to just feel like that, a trigger almost, right? Mm-hmm. And you can be the person that says, okay, where's the truth in this? Or you can be the person that's like, F off and continue to be exactly where you are, right? And so it is a tool that if used correctly, and you also think of who the messenger is too, right? Yeah. Like where's the value coming from in that person that's delivering that feedback, and then you can take it for what it's worth. I mean, but if you're not someone who is comfortable hearing it, like, check yourself, right? It's just it's an indicator of a reason to have some awareness around, okay, why do I always feel like so, like that pit in your throat or that pit in your stomach, or like a need to like be defensive or like fight back or shoot back when somebody's trying to give me a piece of information that is supposed to push me towards my growth.
Right.
So it's totally, all that to say, it's totally natural to kind of feel like, your brain is like fighting with that piece of feedback, but it's also understand that it's something that's going to lead to your personal growth, your own resilience, and your own productivity at the end of the day.
But I think you nailed it when it comes down to where's the source of information coming from, right? Who is giving you that feedback? Now, a lot of times there's people that are just like, they're not credible. They're just being jerks, and they're just talking smack. And yeah, they're gonna tell you some stuff, and maybe it's not the most positive. And you could take that feedback with a grain of salt. Although messages come in all form and fashions, sometimes people that are not really credible might tell you something, give you some good feedback about yourself that you probably needed to hear. But for the most part, you can really look for the truth in what's being said. And when you have that higher level of awareness and that openness, because like, if your goal is to continue to grow and transform to the best version of yourself, like, you're going to be okay with, let me take that feedback. Let me see what I can do better. Because that's what really it's about. It's about self-improvement and development. And when you do that and you create this habit, you start to create more value for yourself, right? You become coachable, right? And when you become coachable, what happens? More people are willing to work with you. And that's really part of having an attractive personality. It's not being the most liked person. It's being a coachable person. It's being somebody that's willing to learn. And for me in my life, I've been blessed with some solid mentors, because I don't come in the door with I know it all mentality. It's really more about, hey, I'm here to learn. I'm here to, hey, if you have some feedback for me, please give it to me. And and I want to work on it
Yeah.
because I want to be better. I want to be that best version of myself.
One little nugget that has always kind of stuck with me from when I did my yoga training, and I feel like I've said this on here before, but it's like coming from a place of not knowing. Be okay, especially if it's somebody that's a mentor-like person, somebody that you respect and know that has experience in the space that you're wanting to learn in. Like, come from a place of not knowing. Like, just be open and don't, have this like attitude of like, well, I already know that. I already know that. Because the more open you are, and have like just that blank slate to absorb, they're going to share, the more likely you are to really gain some nuggets from that interaction. So it's just always, you never want to be the person that's like, I know.
I know.
Reminds me of a teenager, right? They're like, they know everything.
Well, funny thing is that when I was 18, 19, I used to say, I know. Oh, yeah, I know. Oh, yeah, I know that. Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah, if you knew so much, buddy, you'd probably be doing way better than what you're doing now. But that goes back again to, I think there's just a level of maturity that has to happen too when you're younger and you don't, you want to act like versus being older and wiser and you're like, you know what, I actually don't know that much and I need to be willing to learn. And so listening becomes a skill. And when you're able to listen and take back solid information and then you're also surrounding yourself around the right people because you're putting yourself in those environments where, you're going to have mentors and coaches that are going to give you feedback, and then you can take that and then use it to go improve. And then when you apply it, boom, magic happens, and you create these habits that elevate you.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the thing to embrace is like, okay, what does that elevated level for me look like? And how am I performing? How am I communicating? And being able to, continue to build on that.
No, I love that. I mean, there's like so many different references there, like from a coach and an athlete, and you reference a lot or use a lot of analogies for like working out, and it's the same thing. It's just that consistency and like being uncomfortable with like knowing that, oh, there's resistance here, but like the more I kind of push through and being willing to listen to it or being willing to do another rep, the stronger I'm going to get. And I mean, it's the same thing, right? It's the same thing with feedback. It's going to help you improve. The more situations you allow to engage in that feedback loop, the better you're going to be.
Right on.
Right? You're just sharpening yourself. So actively seek feedback, people. Like, and if you're uncomfortable with it, and if you continue to take it as criticism, there's just a level of self-awareness and maybe some self-work that needs to happen. But, naturally, we will feel a little bit of a sting. It's natural to resist the feedback, but lean in, right? Lean into it because it's gonna, like, those who actively seek it and then can implement it are the ones who are going to learn and grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whew, that was a lot. Where's that taking us? So I think that was our first point was like, why feedback is important to your own growth.
Right.
Not just professionally, but also as a person, personally, and having awareness and, well, first putting yourself in situations to receive feedback, and then just having awareness of like, okay, what happens to me? What's my initial reaction to when it happens, right? To when I do get feedback, and am I avoiding it? Am I avoiding it, and why am I avoiding it? Again, these are tips to your own progress as a person, right? If you're willing to self-reflect and be aware of like, how can I do this better, or how can I get out of my own way? Personally, that's going to spill over into your work life, right? And you're just going to be sharp. We always talk to our agents about being the sharpest ones, and that's why we're prioritizing feedback in our office. We just rolled out the tool this week, so we don't know. We don't have any like data on how it's been working, but we will get back to you guys on that.
Well, and I think hitting that next point on resisting the feedback, right? And understanding that there's going to come some pain from it, right? Because sometimes we don't want to hear what somebody else has to say, right? I don't want to hear it. And like, yes, I know that's a problem, or yes, I know that's an issue, and I'm working on it, right? And that's an attitude that can come from feedback resistance. And the problem with that attitude is that there's a wall that goes up, and now you're not listening. And if somebody has something important to say, especially if it's somebody that cares about your growth, cares about your success, then you can miss it. And when you miss it, then it stays a thorn in your side until you do something about it. So it becomes a pain point. And I think back, I when I would resist feedback or get offended or not, or was careless about it, and it's like, oh, I don't care, like that's just who I am, that's how I am. And what I realized was when I would reject this feedback from anybody, whether it was a family member, that all I was doing was hurting myself.
Yeah.
I was preventing myself from growing because I was attached to an old version of myself that wasn't going to allow me to grow. It wasn't going to allow me to improve. It wasn't going to allow me to advance. And it was going to keep me exactly where I was or worse. And that's exactly what happened. As I went through, after I graduated high school and I moved into, trying to find a career, and everybody was giving me career advice, do this, and telling me join the military. Like, man, I'm gonna join the military, but what did I want to do? I wanted to hang out with my friends. I wanted to stay smoking weed and do my own thing and have a good time. So I didn't want to give that up, but it was leading me down the wrong path. And guess what happens? I make bad decisions. I get in trouble. And then it just turns into a long road to a life that could have been detrimental. But thankfully.
Turn it around.
Thankfully, I took some good advice.
One thing that I heard there was the listening part, right? It's somebody's telling you something, and then you put that wall up, right? It's this defense mechanism that prevents you from listening objectively, right? From hearing, like, where is the truth in what they're saying, and like, how can I like separate like the truth of the message from like who's actually sharing the message and what story I'm attaching to what they're trying to do to me, right? It's like, oh, they don't know. I know better, or whatever all those stories are. But like, if you can just like, you have the maturity to listen objectively, like, okay, well, what is he really just like, if I just pare this all the way down, this message all the way down, what can I actually take from it?
Yeah.
Right. And for that, the example that you use, it's like so simple, like get your life on track.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the things that you're doing are not,
yeah,
putting you in the direction of the things that you actually want in life. Like
exactly.
But they're telling you, like, you should do this and you should do that, and sometimes it's received in a different way. But if you can just like sit there and just like pare it down, like, and that again, that takes a level of skills and maturity, and we're not all there. But it's a practice.
There's this willingness, right? So it's even more helpful when you ask for it. When you're asking for the feedback, when you're asking for pretty much some help to put you on a path that's going to lead to improvements. But that usually doesn't happen without feeling any pain, and that's the thing is like, you go through life and you have this wall up and you're rejecting the feedback, and people they love you, they care about you, they're trying to tell you what to do or telling you what to do or giving you advice. And you're just ignoring it, right? And so you go and you make all these decisions, and because you did not take the good advice that was given to you, you made all the wrong decisions, and then consequences that came from that become very, very painful. And then that's where, like, it gets dangerous, right? This is where a lot of people give up on life because they make so many bad decisions that they're like, man, my back's against the wall. I can't even see myself coming up out of this, whatever it may be. And, in my life where I was feeling that way was, man, made a bunch of bad decisions, didn't listen, ended up incarcerated, had 3 children at a young age. I'm like, man, like, how am I gonna get out of this? Like, the world's against me, and then I'm looking back, and my conscience is talking to me and telling me it's all your fault. You didn't listen. You didn't take the good advice. I was like, God dang, I'm only 22 years old. Like something has to give, and I need to change.
Yeah. So again, there's like a pride and ego, right? That interferes.
Yeah.
With our ability,
Huge.
with our ability to even hear or listen to when people are actually trying to give us advice or help, or whether it's unwarranted or not. Like when people care about you, right? They're trying to steer you in a different direction that's going to give you a better outcome. But sometimes we're filled with pride, and our ego speaks, and our ego takes action, and it's almost like it's trying to prove them wrong. And you're spending all this energy like trying to prove somebody wrong. Like,
I'll show you.
I'm the exception. Yeah. And then it instead of that, it backfires and turns into like, I told you so, which are like always the words that nobody wants to hear. Where it's like, and then you're like,
yes, you did.
Yeah. And then you spend even more time trying to prove them wrong when it's like, that's just a cycle we don't want to be. We don't want to be in, but we find ourselves in that situation time and time again until we can actually, build this skill for ourselves of feedback and just getting acquainted with it and just being comfortable with it being part of life and being part of what's going to develop you and what's going to grow you and what's going to, build your resilience and just make you more coachable, more attractive. Like people want to help people who want to be helped.
Right.
And if someone's taking the time out to help you and to give you direction, and then you stop taking the feedback or the direction, you think they're really going to want to continue to help you or share with you or bring you value? Probably not.
Man, major doors can be closed because of the rejection of any positive feedback from somebody that's credible, somebody that is, doing something with their life. And I think that's something to be aware of. And I think as humans, we all want to live a good life. We all want freedoms. We want financial freedoms. We want just natural freedom just to do whatever we want and enjoy life to the fullest. Yeah. But there's a level of responsibility that comes with it, right? So you just can't totally just go do whatever your little heart desires, whatever pleasures you want to indulge in. Like, those things have consequences, right? And so you have to have boundaries as well for yourself. And I think when you get to certain levels of experience, especially when you experience the pain of making the wrong decision, then you're like, okay, I went too far there. There's my boundary. Let me not cross that line again, unless, you want to feel the same pain again. But if you do, like, eventually you're like, hold on, this is too much. I really need to change it. And then you start to, look for it, right? You just seek it out. Like, man, okay, I knew I messed up with these people over here. I need somebody else that can give me another chance.
Yeah. And I think the main thing there too, as I'm like, just recapping this part of like the challenge of feedback and the challenge of receiving feedback is being able to, and we talked about ego a little bit and pride, but being able to detach yourself, like the self-worth that you have around yourself from the feedback. Like it's not an attack on who you are as a person, right? Somebody's giving you feedback not to say, oh, you're what an idiot. You're so dumb. No, it's like, I see that you made that choice, but here's another option. If you could try this, it probably will give you a better result, right? If you continue to do this. So if we continue to attach the feedback that someone's giving us to our own self-worth, then it's always going to feel painful. It's always going to feel painful, right? It's like, oh, I'm not enough. And that's why, that confidence is so important. But over time, the feedback, ironically, builds your confidence, right? It might feel like it's, pushing you down or slapping you around at first, but the more you engage in it, and it might try engaging maybe in a small way, like maybe with your kid or something, like asking them, like, okay, well, how can I do this better? Where it's not as, than at work, like, although the kid might give it to you a little straight. I don't know.
Your kid might give you some
in a small
raw.
way, like, with somebody that you trust and you care about. Like, you've got to like start, we have our brain is so powerful. And if we can do actions over and over and over and over again, we start to rewire the way we think about feedback, and I think it's just, again, it's a practice. We're practicing this so that in real time, when it's happened, when it's time to go, our minds are ready. We're ready to receive it. And it's just that retraining of the mind to like, instead of like having this knee-jerk negative reaction to somebody like offering some sort of help to you, throwing you a bone, now because you're not taking it as a personal attack that, oh, this person really cares about me and they want to help me. And what happens if I do listen and I put it into action?
Yeah. And I think part of having that openness just really changes the way you feel when you receive it, right? There's always going to be a feeling of a little sting, but just instantly you can say, okay, hold on, what's going on here? Where's the truth? But one thing to pay attention to is whenever you're getting feedback, and then you start making excuses. Well, I had this, and then I had that, and then I had this, and I had that, and all these things are happening, and like you're not receiving feedback. Now you're just creating excuses to justify whatever it is that they're trying to help you, overcome or correct, right? So those are things to be mindful of those walls, because it's not until you change the way you respond to these things, to the feedback that's being given to you, that you'll truly start to grow. Because once you're able to be quiet, not make any excuses, say, let me think about that. Thank you for the feedback. I'll let that sink in, and I'll do something about it. I appreciate it. And that's the receiving of that feedback becomes different in the way we respond, or we don't respond. Really not responding at all, and just letting it sink in, and then thinking about, okay, let me reflect. Do I do that? How often do I do that? Okay, is this a problem? Okay, let me make some changes. What happens if I do change? What's the outcome? Now you're kind of going through this critical thinking process to where you're really analyzing yourself, and now you can actually move on and overcome this barrier that you have right here, so you can continue to grow and add more value to yourself.
Yeah, and it also makes me think, because we're talking a lot about how we receive it, the receiver, and we've mentioned a little bit of like who's the one that's giving the feedback and making sure that it's a trusted source. But if you are that trusted source, if we talk a lot about leadership here, and our audience is we have a lot of leaders who are listening. So as a leader, if you have people who are looking up to you or are looking to for your guidance, your leadership in any way, and it's continuing to be a pain point and it's hard to do, and there's also some skill building in how you deliver.
Yeah, for sure.
How you deliver the message, and understanding that, and that's part of leadership. Is like, some people are like, well, this is how I am, this is what I do, but a real true leader is going to meet you where you are, right? Is going to meet you where you are and understand, like, man, I'm giving this person feedback in this way, and I think that's, I don't know, it's just clear, but they get so defensive of it. But maybe they need a different angle, right?
Different
and being
approach,
mindful of that, a new approach that's going to resonate with them. If there's somebody who does, like, we don't know what's going on in people's personal lives. Like a quick feedback can feel like an attack, and so just read the room. Sometimes we've got to read the room and understand, like, okay, I keep giving this person this type of feedback and I'm giving it this way and it's not being received. What can I do differently so that because I know this person's worth, I know that their skill set's there, I know they're an asset to the team, maybe even in relationships too. But I keep on telling them to do this and they don't do it, or they get defensive or whatever, and just be mindful of your approach.
I love that you said that, because it goes back to reflecting on yourself, and it's like, okay, if it's not you, it's me, right? If I can't get through to you as a leader, then I'm doing something wrong. And this is where feedback is important from the other side. You're trying to get feedback, but hold on, give me feedback on how I'm doing. How's my delivery? It reminds me, I've been working with my brother, for a long time,
Yeah.
and man, that's been
Been quite a road,
it's been
quite a journey.
It's been quite a journey, but we have so much love and respect for each other
Yeah.
that we're able to listen. Like, he'll give me feedback about myself. I'll be like, all right, bro, I appreciate that. Thank you. Instead of me putting up a wall, we're brothers and start fighting. Like, no, let me take your feedback. And he does the same thing now. He although I can sense when my delivery isn't the best, and he's like, hey man, you probably could say that different. And I'm like, you're right, my bad. I'll do better. But it's a two-way street. It's like even as the leader or as the follower, it doesn't really matter. Feedback it goes and comes from both sides, and because we're just not perfect people. Just because we're in a position of leadership doesn't mean we're perfect. It just means we have more responsibility, and we have to be more mindful on how we interact and conversate with people and really help them in overcoming their obstacles without throwing more barriers at them, and beating them down. Because a lot of times in certain cultures and certain toxic work environments, like, managers can verbally beat down their employees, their agents, and not build them up. So word choice is very, very important.
100%. 100%. It reminds me of a conversation that I had with one of my son's coaches, right? Coaching is, I respect all coaches a lot, especially the volunteers, that this is their own time that they're choosing to pour into our children, and I respect that 100%. But also, I'm a parent. Like, I don't say much. I don't, I let them do their thing to the coaches. I say a lot to my kid, but
they get a lot of feedback.
I was just very mindful of the word choice, and sometimes, especially at this, at a tender age, middle schoolers, where they don't know how to build themselves up, right? So as a coach, as a mentor, you're giving this or this criticism, almost, it's this feedback in a way that's not received from people who aren't mature enough to turn it around and to say that, oh, well, they're trying to do this to help me. Like, so be mindful again of the word choice, right? And it's like, what is a better way to say it so that they can, it's like I forget what technique it is, but it's like, for every negative thing that you say to them, you've got to say 5 positive things or something in order to balance that out. And it's like and then there's also another feedback loop tool where it's like, okay, say something good and then say the negative thing and then say something good again, right? Like, it's like a feedback sandwich where it's like they can feel good about themselves walking out. And that, at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want the person on the receiving end to feel better. We don't want them, then they may feel defeated, and it might not happen instantly. Like, you don't have to sugarcoat it. But we want them to be able to take an action that's going to lead to an improvement and make them feel better about that conversation.
Well, and you mentioned the coaches, but I automatically start thinking about the parents. Like, man, you hear the parents on the sideline, and they once the game's over, they grab their kid and they're just beating them up.
Oh my gosh,
and it's like, man, you have to choose the words that we're speaking to our children wisely, because they're a sponge, right? And those words, negative or positive, are either going to build them or they're going to destroy them. And that's the thing that, to be mindful all the way around is like, what am I saying and what's the impact of these words? Because, we want to be intentional with it, right? Because one, if we want to grow, we want to receive the positive, and yes, give me the truth, the cold truth. I'll take it. But lift me up with something positive. Give me some words of encouragement, right? And same thing, when we're giving it, we have to be mindful of that, because sometimes our emotions can be tied to feedback, whether giving or receiving. And then that's where the problems lie. And you have
validation almost. Right?
Yeah. And you have to navigate it wisely, because, if you don't pay attention to what you're going to say, man, you can be causing more harm than good. Even though it's coming from a good place, you can be causing more harm than good. And there's this quote that I read, and I think it was from Buddha, but it says, let your thoughts pass through 3 gates before you say anything, right? So 1, is it true? 2, is it important? 3, is it kind? Right? If your thoughts pass those 3 questions, the answer is yes, 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 then you share it, right? So I think that's just something to be mindful of. And there's these tools and techniques that we can utilize when we're, having conversations and not just flying off the handle and just, vomiting at the mouth a bunch of insults. Like, be mindful and know that there's some intention behind this, and the purpose of it is to help people grow, and then also so you yourself as an individual can grow in a positive way that just makes you just a more attractive person and just a more valuable person to the people that you work with and the family that you're around, or friends or whatever.
Yeah, it's the intention again. The intention behind it is the intention of the person that's giving me this feedback, like really wanting to help me, or are they trying to just complain and like dump on me?
Right.
And that should allow you to, to navigate how the amount of energy that you're going to spend on that piece of information.
Well, and with that it also exposes, if you're getting negative feedback from somebody that is just dumping on you and that is just beating you down, it might be a good time to reevaluate who that person is in their life and their significance, and if maybe they should not be in your life, and change that, because that could be something that's holding you back. And I think that's really important when we're having our relationships, in not just in the office, but even personal relationships or marriages, and even spouses, whatever. Sometimes it comes from a spouse in a negative way, and it's just beat down, and it's like, man, it's just killing the relationship.
Yeah.
And that way.
And like, let me hear something good.
Yeah.
Tell me something good that I've done.
Build me up, baby. Come on. But and that's something for me in our marriage I've been grateful for. Is like, man, the feedback that I've always gotten was always good, came from a good place, whether it stung a little bit or not. But it was, I was able to do something with it and continue to improve myself without feeling like, small or just like beat down or anything like that. It's like, okay, there's some words of encouragement. Yeah, you're better than that. Yeah, you should, surround yourself around this type of environment. You should go to these places that are going to be positive for you. That are going to, going to help you, grow or improve on your skills of whether it's public speaking or just being more knowledgeable, and because that's comes from a place of love, and like that's really what's important when you're able to have that kind of person in your corner, like backing you up.
So what you're trying to say is I am really good at giving feedback.
Yeah, right. Well, the good thing is you don't really talk that much. So when it's important, I'll listen.
I do give feedback. I am not gonna lie. I am a person that and not from I'm always looking for ways to improve. Especially the people around people closest to me, my husband, my children, my close friends, whoever's willing to listen. Like, I'm very neutral, when it comes to that, and I will sometimes tell you how it is, and it's not always received well. And I've I didn't lose any friends, but I've had some disruptions in friendships for that. Everyone come back around, but you're right. It's like, if you don't, like, are you just dumping on me, or just trying to point out all my flaws all the time, or do you have any value to bring to why you're, because then it just sounds like complaining, right?
Yeah.
To why you're complaining.
Point me in the right direction.
Right.
Like, all right, yeah, that's my weakness. Cool, I get it. Like, what's the solution? What can I work on?
Yeah. And I love a moment where it's like, instead, have you tried?
Yeah. You're really good
have
at
you
those,
thought about
posing those questions, those thought-provoking questions. And one thing I think back on myself when I just, we're talking about feedback, and where I did well on receiving some feedback that actually was a little painful, and I remember at my old company when I was working, and our CEO was in town, and he was like asking me, hey, well, what's going on around here? Seems like the production's down a little bit. I was like, well, what's this, it's that, it's this, it's that. And he's like, maybe it's you. I'm like, what?
Ooh.
I was like, thought about it. You're right. right, it is me. I am the problem. I'm gonna do something about it. I'm gonna do better. So just swallowing my pride, swallowing like anything that was negative, that feeling like an attack. No, like you're right. It always starts with me. And I'm on my own personal growth journey. I've been on it for a long time, so I knew in that moment, like, hey, there's something here. Like, pay attention. So I started thinking about all the things I was doing wrong, or all the things I wasn't doing at all, and I was like, okay, work on this, work on that. Telling you this for a reason. There's something to change, and you need to change it fast so that we can get better results. Because if you don't, the outcome's not going to be in your favor. And that's when I realized, like, because there's consequences for everything, right? People are giving you warnings. They're telling you about yourself. They're trying to, help you improve, and you don't want to do the things to change. Well, then eventually you get eliminated. Eventually it's time to move on. Like, people don't want to waste their time or be around people that aren't willing to do the things that are going to improve the environment or improve the production of what is important for wherever you're at, whether it's at home or whether it's, in the office. I even think back when we were, I'd work all day and come home and, the house is in chaos because the kids did their thing and I'm trying to hurry up and get to bed and because I got to wake up early and you're like, hold up. Hey, just because you're home doesn't mean you're off the clock. Like, we have work to do around here too.
Right.
And just like, you're right. So as soon as I get home, let me start doing the things that I need, my responsibilities at home, so that way I can get to bed sooner, and do whatever it is that I need to do.
So I don't have to hear any feedback tomorrow.
Yeah. I don't want to hear that feedback. Like, that's something easily in my control, So, but that's growth, right? That's growth, because before I remember having resistance to it and saying, oh man, I work all day, and blah, blah, blah. I do all this stuff. And, then that was just a rejection of it. But as opposed to, like, no, change that. You want to be better at home. Do what you got to do. There's more work to be done. Embrace it. Love it. Get after it. But then there's rewards that come from it. There's a lot of rewards that come from doing good things and listening to people, because even in that environment in my old company, I listened, I took that feedback, and I improved, and I ran a top office in the company. And it led to growth, and it led to my own advancements. And my boss saw that, hey, this is somebody that's coachable. This is somebody that listens. I can work with this guy. Yeah. Same thing at home. Hey, clean up, do things. Wife's happy. Dad's happy.
And that comes with rewards too.
That's right.
It reminds me, especially in the home setting, like, it seems like feedback is a negative thing in relationships a lot of the time, because it's very reactionary. Right, it happens like, in a heated moment, and like, I told you, blah blah blah, whatever it is. But if you carve out time, like, you and I have a regular standing date night, and now that we work together, we have our leadership meetings, and we have a set time to, like, talk about the things,
right?
And to lay the feedback on the table, where it's a very neutral environment. No one's energy isn't like all over the place, and it's just a set time to talk about the things that are important. Yeah. And if so I do encourage, like, if feedback is not part of your personal relationship, like, you don't want to do it in a heated time. Like, you want to be able to address situations when when everyone's nervous system is stable.
100%, because that's anything you do, especially out of the emotion of anger, is going to be wrong. You're going to say the wrong thing. You're going to do the wrong thing. It's just not going to be good. So, yeah, sometimes some people do need to take a moment to cool down. Sometimes you can have that conversation. It's like, but just knowing your partner and knowing what's the best way to communicate with them is important. Because I know, like, even if you and I have a disagreement on anything, you need time. Like, sometimes you just need a little moment to yourself just to, hey, let the nerves settle down. Sometimes I just want to have the conversation right away and get it over with. But I'm okay with giving you your space and giving you your time. And then, hey, we'll revisit. Yeah. We'll revisit. We'll sit down. We'll talk about this as adults. And we'll find solutions, because the solutions are important.
Yeah.
And when they're important to you because you care about having a long-lasting marriage or a long-lasting career or business or whatever it is, like you're gonna handle these conversations differently, and you're gonna be serious about them. You're not gonna take them lightly. You're gonna make sure that you're doing everything in your power to, at least in your own control, to do what's right and make good decisions. So that way you continue to grow together.
Yeah. Love it. I think we're almost running out of time, but we wanted to touch on one last point of the role of receiving feedback and that self-awareness, and then putting it to work, like applying the feedback. And I know one of the examples that popped into my head when we first started recording was just the basketball analogy again. And I know I mentioned about Makai's coaches, and I've always loved all Makai's coaches, and I make sure to put him in environments where I know he's going to grow and he's going to thrive. And so I appreciate all you guys. But one thing that reminded me of is film, right? Like I encourage him to, one of the parents records all the basketball games, and I'm like, are you watching yourself? And he's like, no. And I'm like, you can't just watch your highlights. You can't just watch the good things that you did. Like, you've got to watch the entire game and see where you can improve. And he's like, oh, I'm like, I think we did film as a club team once or twice, and it was just there was so much value in it. The coach would just, pause the game and, like, ask them questions, like, where did you do? And then it was just, like, this whole feedback loop. And I feel like they just grew so much from that, one or two experiences. And, I'd love for it to just be part of an ongoing, like, organization program. I think it's just a missing element that, I think maybe the kids should be doing it on their own, but at 13, are they really?
Yeah. You have to set that up. They don't got the discipline.
Yeah, but, it's like that. It just reminded me of, like, how, oh, yeah, you want to hear all the good things, right? You want to see all the highlights. You want to hear about, all the accolades, like, mention me in the meeting and how I made a sale or what I did great. But when it's time to say, okay, well, you guys aren't doing X, Y, and Z, let me show you, then that's where kind of, the moods change a little bit. The energy shifts kind of. But it should also be, yeah, it should also be like, okay, once you're really, like, on that path and you have this, like, self-awareness, like, okay, give it to me. Yeah. Tell me like it is. I'm ready to put this into action. Like, I'm going to, take everything you're saying, and not everything is going to be applicable, right? Like, take what works, leave what doesn't.
That's right.
But put it into action. Like, it does no one any good or service if, you're getting all these valuable insights to do nothing with.
Right. And when you get those insights, now you can create a plan, right? And when you have a plan of action, now you're carving out the path of the direction you want to go. Because that's the most important thing, is know where you're going, right? And, we can think about all these things and all this feedback that we get and all this work that we have to do. But all you have to do is just take it one day at a time. One day at a time, make one good decision at a time.
Yeah.
And if you just slow it down a little bit, it's like, hey, I don't have to be quick to respond. I don't have to take action, like, right now, but if I know exactly what I'm going to do and what I should do, then I take action and go and execute. A lot of times people will speak without knowing what they want to say, and then they just ramble, and then just, like, it's a lot of gibberish. Versus, let me think about what I want to say and being very intentional with what I want to say, and then the conversation goes a lot better. And then also taking a moment to pause and say, let me let this sink in, let me reflect, and then now I can respond, or I can take the action because now I know what to do and what not to do.
Yeah.
Because that right there is where the growth happens. It's in the actionable steps that is actually happening live as you go through your life. So when you get to the point, and it really, the intersection is at the feedback loop. It's like right there. So when you're hearing it, how do I respond? What do I say? Yeah. Okay, I received it. Okay, perfect. Good job.
Yeah, that's good. You think, like, okay, I get this piece of information. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it actionable? Right? Like, are they giving me, like, just, and then you can just go back and ask, okay, so what can I do? What is the next best step? What do you think? And again, like you can separate what's valuable and what's not, right? But being able to engage in the feedback loop, that's where there's killer value. And then, what about my reaction? Am I being emotional? Like, is my ego, my pride speaking for me? Is that what's kind of bubbling up right now? Or can I process this in a way that's going to, pare down and leave me with something that's valuable so that I can take the next best step?
Yep.
And then, how is this piece of information helping me grow? How is this leading to my own self-improvement, my own self-growth, my own self-awareness? Again, and if it's not, you leave that piece of information out. But if it is, it's like, okay, well, what can I do?
Yeah.
Now how is this a tool for me to be better, to level up, to just be the next best version of myself?
Yeah. And taking the right actions is probably the most important thing. When you're evaluating, you're looking at it, you're seeing, okay, here's the feedback that I got. Now, what are my steps? Then, okay, next time when I'm having a conversation, I'm going to enunciate my words. Next time, I'm not going to stay out all night at the bars. Come home at 3 a.m. That's not going to be good.
That feedback won't be good.
That won't be good feedback. No. So, you start to think about whatever it is that you're getting. And because our actions can cause pain, in certain environments for, certain people, whether it's a work environment. Like if you're constantly using negative tone and words towards people, guess what? People are not going to want to be around you. Mm-hmm. And if that's just how you are and that's just how you speak and you're not willing to change it, well, man, you're probably going to have to go somewhere else because people won't tolerate it. And they'll only tolerate it for so long before people just bounce on you. And that's a relationship killer.
Yeah.
But, one thing I learned a while back was from my leadership coaches, life is about character, relationships. Like you have to have good character and you have to build relationships because we were created for social interaction.
Totally, 100%.
So
we're created for a community and to learn how to best socialize with others. You're so right.
Right. And so if we can't get in front of, our own weaknesses and how we communicate and the actions that we take, then that's only going to make life worse for us versus let me learn, let me adjust, let me change the way I speak, let me speak less, let me be more kind. Let me be kind when I'm using my words. Let me be more respectful when I'm speaking to people. Like whatever it is, let me take a second to just listen. Maybe somebody doesn't want to hear what I have to say, but they just need lend an ear. Okay, I'll be a friend. I can do that, and then that right there starts to improve the quality of life and the relationships that we have.
Love it. Any final last words, takeaways?
Well, I think that if you're not willing to receive feedback, you got a long way to go. That's the first thing. Second is be open. Be open to receiving it. Ask for it. Actively look for the feedback. Actively ask, what can I do better? Sometimes I'll ask you like, hey, what can I do better? Mm-hmm. I'll ask my agents, hey, how am I doing?
Yeah.
Is there anything I can do better? Give me some feedback. I really appreciate it. And then from there, take the actionable steps. Whatever it is, and take note of these things. Write them down if you have to. Don't totally dismiss them. Just and find that one thing that needs to be worked on. Mm-hmm. And work on that immediately, and create a habit of working on developing skills so that way you continue to improve and get better and better and add more value to yourself. Because if you do that, guess what? Eventually, your relationships are going to prosper. There's going to be more love flowing around you, good people flowing around you, because you're just going to be a magnet because people love to spend time with you and have stimulating conversations with you. And then business will increase as well. If you're you have that attractive personality, and you're a listener and you're coachable, people want to work with you.
Yep. I think that's a great end note. So, we want to challenge you guys. Ask someone in your network, family member, friend, someone you trust. Ask someone this week, like, that very question. What's one thing I can do better? And then apply it, right? What's that one thing I can do better and apply it? Like, again, build that habit. And what better time to start than now?
Yeah, and with that, when you ask, don't turn around and point the finger. Well, I want you to do this, so don't turn it around on them. So just sit back, receive that feedback, digest it, say thank you, I appreciate you, and then take that action.
Awesome.
Right on. All right, well, that's the end of our show. Appreciate you all for tuning in. We'll catch you at the next one. See ya.
Thank you.